Good morning. Welcome to this March 8th, 2024 meeting of the Montgomery County House Delegation. Today, we are joined by our special guest, Congressman David Trone, who's going to be giving the delegation a little update, and then we will be voting on 3 bills. But first, we'll go to our guest. Congressman Trone, thank you so much for joining us today. We're glad to have you in the delegation.
Thank you, Chair Carr and Senate Chair Kramer.
Yeah, and we'll turn to you if there's any remarks you'd like to share, and then I'm sure some of my colleagues will have some questions if we have time for that.
I'll try to make some quick remarks, take some Q&A, and let you go about your day. Thanks for having us here today, as always.
It is now.
It's great to see the State of the Union last night. I'm sure everybody saw it. What the president did, excellent. He showed energy. He had some innovative ideas. I'm really delighted he's got some plans to help us with the suffering in Gaza, with the seaport and the third bridge. So those are all good steps. And we got to continue on to the fall. But the good news is we finally passed half of the 2024 appropriation. Now, we know the year's about half over. The other half is still coming up. Hopefully, they'll go the same way. It's at the numbers that we negotiated last May. So it took us from May until now to do what we said we would do in May. So Speaker Johnson proved to be not particularly effective at changing anything, and he had no leverage. We're now starting the 25 appropriation cycle. Of the 6 bills passed, one of the highlights was an additional $1 billion in WIC funding. That'll help 120-some thousand breastfeeding, postpartum women, infants, children in Maryland alone. Also passed was one of my bills called the Due Process Continuity of Care Act. What that does is ensures Medicaid coverage doesn't get terminated when you are in pretrial detention, which unfortunately is the case. Last session, we passed the bill up to age 18. This session, we got another couple bites of the apple. The next session, we hope to finish the job. It's $1 billion or more to get it finished. This latest update will create a $113 million grant program to help the states provide that continuity of care, of health care for individuals as they leave incarceration. Ultimately, it'll save us money by providing health care coverage when folks need it, and it's the right thing to do. In the area of community project funding, I was happy to report that we placed among the top 10 Democratic members on total community project funding investment, securing over $16 million in project funding. Healthcare front, as you know, I'm a member of the pro-choice caucus. Wanted to note we received another 100% reproductive freedom for all congressional scorecard for the 5th year in a row. And we'll continue to try to, if we hopefully take the House back, hold on to the presidency, we can work to figure out how to move and protect forever women's right to choose and reverse Roe, the Dobbs decision. I'm also a member of the Black Maternal Health Caucus and supported the Momnibus Act, which we did last session. We still got a lot of work to do. Black women mortality rates are 3 times the higher of white counterparts, which are already inexcusably high. We've got to continue to work on this. We got another $10 million in federal funding to do research into so we can get the data to help make the case better, supporting minority-serving institutions to study these health disparities on maternal health outcomes. Also, mental health, we've got to continue to invest in our kids and our educators and affordable mental health care. The good news, there's $3 billion coming. It's beginning to roll out now in 2024 for our public schools, K through 12. That was part of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. That's being delivered to schools now, and the kids really, really need it. Investing in our future is also the environment. The 2 biggest long-term challenges we have in our lives are children, education, and the environment. 2023, bad news, warmest year ever on our planet. The good news is the Inflation Reduction Act, which Republicans are seeking to roll back. That's not going to happen in the Senate, but it will happen perhaps someone in the House. That's invested $110 billion in new clean energy, manufacturing, $70 billion EV vehicle supply chain, and another $10 billion in solar manufacturing. League of Conservation Voters just came out with their environmental scorecard. Also, the National Parks Fund got their scorecard out. We got another A+ for those folks. But at the end of the day, this is about leadership, about taking action, not lip service. We got to continue to address these issues head on. But the unfortunate news, this Congress has been the least productive Congress perhaps ever, and continues to be so. But the good news, we finally passed half of the appropriations. Unfortunately, it's March. That's it. Happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Congressman. Colleagues, if you have any questions, please raise your virtual hand. And while folks are getting their hands up, I just wonder if you've, Congressman, if you've heard anything in terms of the prospects of the expansion of the child tax credit. I believe that has is sitting in the Senate awaiting action. I don't know if you have any news there that you can share.
No, we haven't heard anything concrete. They're keeping it under wraps. I think it has so many tax extenders that the Republicans want that's in that bill that I think we're going to get it. I think they're just trying to negotiate a few, perhaps some minor adjustments and pull together the votes. But I'm hopeful that's going to go through. It's not everything we wanted, as you know, but I'll tell you, the child tax credit was one of the best things we've ever done. And it's such a shame. We only could do it for 2 years, but this is at least a partial step in the right direction.
Thank you for that update. We'll turn to Delegate Wu for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Congressman Chuang. Welcome to the delegation team. And so I have a question about recently the group reached out to our office about a National Infrastructure Bank. They're trying to get a Maryland Congress member to sign that all. And they said they have not heard from anyone from Maryland. And I think the idea to have an infrastructure bank to really support our infrastructure, the whole nation, that idea sounds pretty good, I would say. I want to see, has your office heard about that?
I'll tell you, Delegate, the office probably has. It's not something they brought over to me. I'll ask Sarah and we'll get that surfaced. I'll be happy to take a look at it. Then I'll get back to you myself personally.
Sure, thank you. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you for bringing that up. Infrastructure, crucial.
Delegate Wims.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello, Congressman Trone. I just wanted to let you and everyone here know that didn't know that this week we had Sergeant Patrick Kemp to come and testify on a bill that is to deal with aggressive driving. But during that testimony, he let us know that you had played a role in helping him in his rehabilitation and recovery. So we just wanted to thank you on behalf of all of us for our great hero, Sergeant Kemp, who plans to go back to work, by the way, in the Montgomery County Police Department this fall. So just say thank you for the help that you gave him.
I'll tell you, he's a great, wonderful, wonderful man and suffered a tragic accident. I met with him myself personally, and we were so happy we could get him into Walter Reed. So we got the care that he so much deserved. So thank you for that, Greg.
Thank you, Delegate Wims. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Congressman. Thank you for being here. This is an issue that doesn't really impact Montgomery County, but a very good friend of mine and Democratic Party activist is interested in it. And this is about the Robert E. Lee statue near the Antietam battlefield, I think it is, in Washington County. We're trying to get that removed. Do you have an update on that?
Outrageous, outrageous, outrageous. That's my bill. We're working diligently to get that through. We've got a lot of pushback, I could say, from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. They believe that Robert E. Lee is an important part of our history, even though he had nothing to do and he was a slaveholder, et cetera, as we all know. But I've been on that bill now for probably 3-4 years, trying to get that done, and we've been not successful yet. We're going to continue to bang our head against the wall. The statute needs to go, but the Republicans at this point in time, I'm not hopeful that they're going to come around, and they like history as they see it. And sometimes the history they see is not the real history that the rest of the folks that lived at that time were able to see.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman, for that update.
Delegate Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Congressman Trone, for joining us this morning. It seems like border security and immigration is stalled, as per most things are, but I'm wondering if you could give us any sense of what next steps might be.
I'll tell you, I think next steps is we're going nowhere. We had a deal. It wasn't a deal that we loved. A lot of our immigrant groups were very upset about the deal. Some our Latino folks felt like they didn't have a seat at the table. And I think that was true, very much true. They should have a seat at the table. But the president reached a compromise that was literally largely what the Republicans asked for. And it would have done a lot of changes to the border, a lot of increases in financial support to move cases through much faster, supporting the Customs and Border Patrol. And literally, as the president said last night at the State of the Union, and I thought he hammered the Republicans on it, rightfully so. President Trump decided he didn't want that deal done because he literally said he wants to use that as a campaign issue to hit President Biden on the head with. I've never heard such a blatant putting politics over people, but that's where President Trump is at. So I think we're going to see very little changes for the moment, and we're going to see continued chaos at the border. Sorry.
Thank you. And I think our last question is going to come from Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Um,
And he's frozen. Joys of our wonderful Wi-Fi in the House office building.
Thank you.
Yep.
Question.
I
Go ahead.
can't hear you,
DC.
Delegate. I
You
can't
froze
hear
for a
you,
moment.
David.
Delegate Fraser
Forget
Hidalgo,
it.
go ahead. You froze for a moment, but you're back on.
Any movement on Ukraine funding?
It's mind-boggling. I mean, the speaker should be absolutely just humiliated, embarrassed. I mean, I was sitting last night with two members of the Intelligence Committee, and the matter of fact, one of them is the ranking member, the head of intelligence. And we had a discussion, and it's just absolutely incomprehensible that we cannot pass a bill that would fly through that chamber. And you saw last night, David, when he brought it up, there were a ton of Republicans standing, cheering, that we need to fund Ukraine. So I don't see, unless Speaker Johnson one day wakes up and God speaks to him and says, do the right thing, save the people of Ukraine from what will clearly be a Putin victory, and down the road could lead to war, American boots on the ground. There's no question. We believe, the community believes Putin will continue. Moldova, Georgia, they'll be next. And I can't, it's some of the worst government I've ever seen. And it just infuriates me. I'm sorry, to no end. And I wish I had a good answer for you. And I'm embarrassed that I don't, because Speaker Johnson just doesn't want to do a damn thing. And he's in the captured by the 40 insane Republicans on the Tea Party side, and he so far has capitulated to them. It has to happen, but so far I don't see the avenue.
It's amazing to me to look back and study history of pre-World War II in the 1930s and go, how could people actually think that? And then we're actually watching it right now. This is just going to lead to American boots on the ground if this doesn't get.
Neville Chamberlain, he's sitting at the speaker's sitting there last night next to the vice president, wringing his hands. He's a man not fit for the job, wasn't ready for the job, and he's just stuck with indecision right now, and nothing is happening. It's wasting my time going there.
Well, yeah. All right. Thank you. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
sorry.
Thank you, Delegate Pritchard. I'll go. Congressman, thank you so much again for being with us today. We appreciate the updates and your just being here and engaging in a dialogue with the delegation. Thank you and good luck today.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Appreciate your time as always.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so colleagues, we will now move on. We do have 3 bills on our agenda for today. We do have a couple of colleagues who are currently in a voting session in a subcommittee and a standing committee. So I think we're going to stand by on our bi-county bill 112-24 for a moment. And let's see, is Delegate Moon with us so that maybe we can talk about the amendments on MC 8-24. See, he's logged in. We'll see if he can come on camera. Great. Okay. So we will go to MC 8-24. As a reminder, this is a bill we did pass out of delegation previously, but there are some amendments that are going to be offered in the standing committee. And typically our delegation does weigh in on amendments to local bills before standing committee moves on them. So Delegate Moon, I'll turn it over to you just to talk about what the amendments are. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair and colleagues. Apologies on an additional amendment to this bill. Sorry, let me get rid of my cell phone. All right, as you'll recall, this is a bill that deals with HOA and deed restrictions that would block the housing that is allowed by the county. That the covenant or deed restriction would be invalidated if it was an old one from before Montgomery County's modern zoning code in 1958, as well as prospectively. So the county council had a discussion on this bill a week or so ago, and I had the opportunity to listen in, and they had questions that were similar to some of the folks in the community, which is to say, could we more clearly define which types of restrictions we're trying to bring into the code? So Montgomery Planning took a look at this and suggested that we might want to list what those types from the Montgomery law are. Rather than do that, our drafter thought it would be easier to list the types of housing restrictions that are not intended to be in the bill. So that's what's before you. The amendment essentially clarifies that this overturning of these property restrictions would not include things like seniors housing, dormitories, and other types of specialty housing, that it is meant to only apply to things like single family versus accessory dwelling unit versus multifamily, etc. So with that, I would move the amendment.
Thank you, Delegate Moon. Is there a second to the amendment before?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Delegate Moon, seconded by Delegate Charcudian. Any questions on this amendment or discussion? Yes, Delegate Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Delegate Moon, so did the council and the executive now take a position on the bill, or the bill as you're proposing to amend it?
So the executive, unsurprisingly, is not a fan of this bill. The council seems broadly interested in the bill. They held it pending some of these changes because they were told it was going to get a thorough discussion in the ENT committee that you chair. That's happening later this afternoon, but they did, folks did think it was important to put some of this clarification in before the body. There were some members of the council, I'll just concede what the discussion sounded like. There were some members of the council who indicated desire not to have a date in here at all, to just have it apply to all of the HOA and deed restrictions, whether they were from 1958 or 1999. So that was one question. And a second council member questioned whether we should have an October 1 effective date for the prospective part of this bill and whether that shouldn't be moved up quicker, so that the prospective aspect of this bill would take effect sooner. I will leave that to you, Mr. Chair, those questions.
And Delegate, look, I mean, Madam Chair, if I may. So, I mean, Dougman, if you want me personally to vote for this as a courtesy to you, so you can come before the committee this afternoon and say, these are amendments from the delegation, I will do that. However, as I tried to explain a couple weeks ago, this bill is going to be thoroughly vetted. So this will probably not be the end of the amendment. So I'm not quite sure why the delegation needs to vote on this set of amendments when if the bill moves, there could be other amendments. Which is something we have to do,
Mr. Chair,
this time of year. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, I tried to spare you from this because at this point I thought, the delegation put its product out and the committee could take over at this point and stick whatever the heck you all thought was appropriate. So I did suggest that we not vote on the amendments today and just let you guys do your thing. But there was a question about procedure on this, and it was recommended to me that we should vote the amendment. So I apologize.
I will vouch for that. I was the one who said that we should go ahead and take a vote on the amendments today because I did not want to hold up E&T's discussion on it, given how close we are to crossover. So, Chair Corman, if you think that it'd be premature to vote on this set of amendments, again, since I was the one that brought this forward for the agenda today, we can hold off on this.
Madam Chair, I defer to you. Like I said, if as a courtesy, I'm happy to vote for the amendments. But again, to repeat myself in my best Kumar impersonation for the 17th time, hey, 17th, that was an accident, District 17. This bill needs a pretty significant vetting, Mr. Leader. And I personally have a lot of questions about it, to say nothing of, all my colleagues. So I just want you to be not surprised.
Point of procedure then, for my two subject matter and delegation chair on this. For future precedent, when we're in this posture that a bill has left delegation and clearly is going to take additional amendments in the standing committee, should we or shouldn't we bring those amendments back to the delegation for additional discussion?
Well, and I think my error here this time was that this vote might be premature. Again, I was trying not to hold up your bill, Delegate Moon, just because when we have to walk votes around, I have to walk a vote sheet around between meetings. That sometimes can take time. I mean, that is faster than waiting until the next Friday delegation meeting. And we do still have one more Friday delegation meeting set for next Friday. So sometimes we do need to go that route. And it sounds like that may be what has to happen on this bill anyways. But yeah, I was trying not to keep your bill from moving forward, given that you had some amendments that you knew you were going to be offering. So Delegate Moon, I'll defer to you. I mean, they're your amendments. It's your bill. You made the motion. We can go ahead and take a vote, and at least that shows where the delegation is at on this set of amendments, even if there are more amendments forthcoming, or you can withdraw your motion, whatever you'd like to do.
Gosh, Madam Chair, I feel like I'm in a difficult position here. I suppose at this point I will respect the standing chair and withdraw my motion and let them do their work.
And Delegate Charkoudian, do you withdraw your second? She's muted, but I see her giving a thumbs up. So, okay.
Yes.
My apologies all. That was my, I'll take ownership of that situation for today. Let me just check in to see. It looks like our colleagues who are on HGO have not logged in yet. So why don't we move to HB 732. This is also a bill we took a position on previously, but there are a set of amendments that the sponsor is offering. So colleagues, you might remember this is the bill sponsored by Delegate Harris, Montgomery and Prince George's County Rent Court Workforce Solutions Pilot Program. The sponsor amendments would just align the House bill with the Senate passed amendments. Unlike that last situation and my bad call there, apparently these are the final set of amendments. And again, the Senate passed the bill in this amended version. Basically, what these amendments do is make part of the bill enabling rather than mandatory in terms of having a representative of the Workforce Solutions Pilot Program be in the courthouse. Has some language about having an MOU between the program and I guess the courts, and strikes part of the bill that had to do with staying an eviction proceeding. So what I've been told is, again, these amendments were already moved in the Senate, and that's the posture of the bill has moved in the Senate, and apparently all the stakeholders are on board with these amendments.
Move the amendments.
Thank you, Delegate Moon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Delegate Kaufman, for seconding. Any questions or discussion on these amendments? Okay, we'll do a voice vote for this one. All those in favor of supporting this new set of sponsor amendments, please say aye or raise your hand, and please come on camera if you want to vote.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Not seeing any. Those are supported by the delegation. And I should say that at this moment, delegates Cullison and Kaiser are excused. They are still in a voting session, and Delegate Shetty is also excused. So with that, we will go to our last agenda item, PGMC 112-24, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Montgomery County People's Council for Land Use Planning, which came out of the Economic Development Committee this week. And I will turn to Chair Chi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. This is the moment you have all been waiting for. Now I can say that. Finally, we are here. But before I get into the weeds, let me first say to all the women listening in and on the call, Happy International Women's Day. Let's not forget that, March 8th. Yay, yay us. Yes, the Economic Development Committee finally voted out on Wednesday, PGMC 11224, or HB, also known as HB 1364, which is the Office of People's Council on Land Use and Zoning. I first want to take a quick moment to thank our delegation chair, Julie Plokovich-Carr, for her tremendous thoughtfulness and willingness to putting the work to survey the rest of the delegation to see where people were on this, to explain the process and the bill, and work with multiple parties at the county and the state delegation level to make this bill work. The bill, which is heavily amended, reflects our committee's understanding that an office primarily for public access and the transparency about land use and zoning can be a valuable resource for the public to understand the complex land use and zoning issues and to follow the protocols and understand how they can meaningfully participate in the process. But we also recognize that this is a very different Montgomery County from when the office was first conceived, which was about 34 years ago. In terms of demographics, our economy, the need for housing, especially affordable housing, and to some delegates' argument that the council had 14 years to work on this, they really only had about 14 months since their election of this new group of council members, especially given the fact that this is historically the most diverse body of council members that we have seen, with 6 women just elected. We want to show some deference in terms of their ability to evaluate how this office can continue to offer value to today's Montgomery County. So this amended bill, and by the way, in case some colleagues are not familiar with the county work process and authorities, division of power, the county council is the body elected by Montgomery County residents to provide oversight over land use and zoning issues in the public interest. So this amended bill shows our understanding of these dynamics while recognizing the value of public access to information. So I'm going to defer to the council, to our delegation council, to explain the bill. Otherwise, I can also explain the bill. Jen or Harry, would you like to take this up?
I would personally defer to Harry if he's available, since he was
Okay.
at the last meeting, so.
I see him coming on video.
All right.
Yeah. No, sorry, I just had to get that on. And apologies for the compressor that's running outside. There is regrettably nothing I can do about that. But yeah, so you may be familiar with the bill as it was previously drafted. The amendments change the bill as follows. It makes the county council the entity that appoints the people's council. It strikes several of the pieces of purpose that the people's council was supposed to serve and replaces it with a requirement that the people's council is a person who has substantial experience with land use procedures, requires the people's council to, in accordance with the action plan specified in the County Racial Equity and Social Justice Act, focus on serving populations that have been traditionally underrepresented, including low-income residents, renters with disabilities, and residents who speak a language other than English in the home. And because I believe this was discussed in the subcommittee, that's an illustrative list. It is not limited to those categories. It charges the People's Council with being an independent source of information to educate residents on land use planning and the development review process, including by providing information and technical assistance on land use and zoning topics, providing guidance on effective participation in those processes, conducting proactive outreach to the residents of the county. If requested by if requested by principal parties, assist and facilitate implementation of county liaison committees. It's yeah, sorry, there was a typo in an earlier draft. Prepare and widely distribute information through appropriate methods, respond to inquiries from county residents, and proactively meet with residents and community groups. It prevents the People's Council from representing a private individual or interest group in any legal or administrative proceeding. It prevents them from representing any party in any proceeding involving zoning or land use within 1 year after serving as People's Council. And it prevents them from giving testimony in a proceeding before a public body, either as a representative or in an individual capacity. And then it requires the People's Council to provide an annual report to the County Council on its activities. And finally, it requires the County Council to approve adequate funding for the People's Council, and it allows the County Council to remove the People's Council for good cause by an affirmative vote of 6 council members. And it also changes the effective date from October 1st to July 1st, 2024.
Thank you, Harry. What you have just heard is essentially the entirety of the amendment. So with that, Madam Chair, could I move the amendment?
Let's hang on 1 second. I realize I have a procedural question I need to ask our committee council. So because just this morning, we did get a piece of technical feedback from the county about needing to make a very small addition in terms of some of the stipulations about the role. Jen, should we take the motion and second on these amendments and then take the additional amendment procedurally?
I would just discuss how this would be slightly different before voting on the amendment, because then you're considering it. It's a very small change. Just, you know, if you want to explain it, you can, and where it's coming from, that's fine, but you might as well consider it all together. So
Just roll it in. Okay, so we don't need a separate vote on that. So, okay, Chair Chi, yes, please go ahead and offer a motion.
Yeah, I would like to move the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Chair Chi, seconded by Delegate Hoffman. And before we go to discussion, let me just specify or add some specifics about what's going on with this additional technical amendment. So colleagues, in the Google Drive today, there is a reprint of the bill with the amendments. So if you're following along in that document, on the last page of the reprint, on line 20, where it says the People's Council may not, 1, represent a private individual or interest group in any legal or administrative proceeding. the piece of technical feedback that we received was that we should also specify an entity. And so in working with our delegation council this morning, that new language would be inserting public or private entity. So the People's Council may not represent a private individual, public or private entity, or interest group in any legal or administrative proceeding. So that's the additional technical amendment that I'm going to roll in here on the fly to the amendments that came out of economic development. So with that, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Yes, Delegate Kaufman. And Delegate Kaufman, you're still muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Let me phrase this as delicately as possible. But Chair Chi or Chair Plakovich-Carr, while the sponsor of the bill may not be thrilled with these amendments, because whenever bills get amended, it's kind of hard because, you know, we wrote it and we think it's a good bill. But are these amendments that he can live with? Is this the path that he's chosen? Or, you know, would he like to withdraw it? Or did you just get any input from the sponsor?
Thank you, Delegate Kaufman, for the question. And yeah, I'm happy to talk a bit more about the context. So I've had multiple conversations with the bill sponsor over a multitude of weeks. As you all know, I have checked in with every member of our delegation and got feedback from 25 out of 26 of us about this bill and about what people's thoughts were. And I'll say this was a bill where there was not a clear path forward. There was a small number of members who wanted to just pass the bill as is. There's a slightly larger number of members who wanted to vote it down. But the largest group of members wanted to do something, but not quite the bill that was introduced before us. So I took all that feedback and really did try to balance all of those perspectives and to find a path forward, which resulted in the amendments that are before us. It is, you know, very different substantively than what the bill was that came in. But again, trying to find a pathway forward here, because our delegation does not have a drawer, unlike standing committees in the General Assembly. It is not an option to just not vote on a bill. So either we need to pass something or we need to vote it down. And there was not really, again, appetite to vote it down. So trying to find that compromise of how to move forward. And I'd say like any good compromise, many people are dissatisfied with it, but hopefully people can live with it. Now specifically on where the bill sponsor was at, he was, again, you know, given the option that if he preferred to withdraw the bill and for us to engage with the county in a different way, say send a letter encouraging the county or county partners to work this out. He chose not to take that option, and at this point has decided to not engage in terms of what the amendments were. But you know, to put a finer point on it, he's not supportive of the amendments.
All right. Well, I commend you because you can't let the perfect enemy of the good. And I know you've done Herculean work on this, and I look forward to supporting the amendments.
Thank you, Delegate Kaufman. Delegate Miracle North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you see me?
No,
Still?
your video cut out. You were on video.
Sorry. I'm not sure
It's
what
okay.
happened.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've seen some feedback on amendments. I wanted to clarify, how do these amendments, you know, if passed, compare to like Baltimore County or Prince George's County that I believe also have People's Council? Was that discussed at the last meeting or in the journey of trying to get these amendments finalized?
Chair Chi, do you want to address that? I think that came up in your committee conversation.
Thank you. Okay, there I
Yes,
am.
there was a question about that. From my understanding, and I haven't looked into all of the functionalities of other counties, but I believe Montgomery County's Office of People's Council has a heavier focus on providing technical assistance historically as a function of the office. And this bill, as amended, still emphasizes that, which is to provide technical assistance, transparency, and resources. But every county basically is different. That's the conclusion I reached after reading the report from a few years ago by the OLO. The council's own conclusion is that they are all different. So each county gets to decide. Yeah.
Thank you.
Delegate Wims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a question. Is there a need to do a racial equity or social justice analysis if this amendment passes on the bill? And maybe the legal counsel.
Yeah, my understanding is no, because the county already has a law that they passed a few years ago that does those sort of analyses on their own bills, and we are specifically saying that in accordance with the action plan specified in the County Racial Equity and Social Justice Act, and then saying what population should be served under the bill. But our delegation at the state level, there is no such analysis that happens officially on any bill. But we certainly did try to keep this in accordance and reference the county's own racial equity and social justice law.
Okay,
But if council wants to add anything else, they're welcome to. Okay, we'll take that as the answer then. Other questions on the amendment or discussion? Okay, not seeing any. I'm just checking here. It looks like our colleagues who are on HGO must still be in their subcommittee voting session, so we won't hold things up anymore. But we do have a motion and a second on the amendments. We're going to try this by voice vote. So again, colleagues, if you want to be recorded as voting, please come on camera at this time. All those in favor of the amendments, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed to the amendments?
Oppose.
Thank you. Okay, that looks like that passed. I'll let Jen give me the totals here based on how many people were on camera. There was one opposed. I'm not sure how many folks we had on camera favorable. She's counting.
Sorry about that. I'm also sorry about earlier. I get amendments and I needed to make sure it wasn't a rush floor amendments. 25. I believe it is 21-1. Ralph has a different call. He can let me know too.
I concur.
Okay, so that the amendments pass. Is there a motion on the bill as amended?
The bill as amended?
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Moved by Chair Chi. This time we'll say it was seconded by Delegate Frazier. I'll go conversation, questions, discussion on the bill as amended. Delegate Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to explain my vote on this. As all of you know, over the course of the interim for 7 months, the Development Review Work Group met, and with the help of a vice chair of our committee, Linda Foley, we came up with a series of suggestions. The work group itself was made up with just about everyone that you could want to have a seat at the table. And in order to make sure that the group could function in a productive way, I promised the members of this work group that I would always vote in accordance with the work product there. This, unfortunately, was not one of the things that received consensus support within the work group. I have my own opinions about it. I certainly think there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. But from my perspective, I made a promise to the members of this work group. My integrity is important, and so I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. Any other discussion? Okay. We'll again try this as a voice vote. If it gets too complicated, we can do a roll call. All those in favor of the bill as amended, please raise your hand. We're not going to do vote, so that way our analysts can see. Keep your hands up for a second. They're still taking notes. Okay, I think we're good there. Anyone opposed?
Jen, did you see me? Sorry.
We got you, Delegate Kaufman. Yeah. See 3 hands up for opposed.
Hang on. Sorry.
I believe it was Lopez, Wims, and Queen opposed. Ralph's nodding. So I think we're good there. Let Jen give us the total here.
Wow. Okay. Really sorry about this. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Do we have 19 to 3, Ralph? Sorry about that. It's hard to see everybody on 2 screens, so I was kind of jumping around.
That's what I have, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right, so the bill does pass out of delegation and will go on next to be considered by the Prince George's County delegation, and they told me they will take it up at their next meeting. So, colleagues, this was our last bill that initiated or originated on our side. So our drawer is finally empty. There is still the potential of one bill coming over from Prince George's County, a bi-county bill. We'll keep folks posted on that. So we do still have a delegation meeting next week because I think we do still have one more presentation. Ralph is at our local fiscal briefing presentation, I think, next week.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so at this point, that is hopefully will be the last meeting that our delegation will have this session. Delegate Kaiser, and I guess HDO voting has finished. Go ahead.
Yes, I just want to, I raised my hand on the last bill, but I wanted to be in the affirmative on the others as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other announcements before we adjourn? Okay, seeing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.